Hey everyone, and welcome to this deep dive. We're going to be talking about Uganda's performance at the 2024 Chess Olympiad in Budapest. This one is a really inspiring story. We like to cover these underdogs,
Yeah.
and this story has it all. We're going to be looking at a recap article, and we're really going to focus on the challenges that both the open and the women's teams faced.
Yeah, what's really remarkable is that they were able to not just persevere through these challenges, but they were able to thrive in spite of them. And we're going to break down just how impressive that is, especially for people who aren't familiar with the structure of the Olympiad.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of like the Olympics, but for chess. You have open section, and you have the women's section, and countries send their best players to represent them. So picture this, right? Uganda's teams, they were dealing with late visa approvals, so they had to travel in phases, and some players were arriving way later than others. On top of that, some even got sick when they finally arrived.
Yeah, that's kind of unheard of to have that level of disruption before a major tournament.
Yeah.
And they didn't have their full teams there for the first two rounds. So both the open and the women's teams had to forfeit those matches.
So, yeah, talk about starting from behind. So let's unpack the open section first. Uganda was up against some serious competition. These were powerhouse teams with super established players. To give you some context, the team was led by coach FID Master. That's FIFM for short, Wanyama Harold. And they had a strong lineup with International Master IM, Dr. Sigwani Arthur, and FID Masters Kawuma Patrick and Nizubuga Haruna. And these titles, they basically represent different levels of achievement in the chess world.
Yeah, it's kind of like rankings in other sports. It gives you a sense of the player's experience and their skill. So an IM is a very strong player. FM's a step below, but still very accomplished. And for Uganda to be facing teams with multiple grandmasters, that's the highest title in chess you can get. It was a real David versus Goliath situation.
And they totally didn't let that intimidate them. Even with missing players in those early rounds, they were able to rally. And they actually secured 3-1 victories against both Djibouti and Barbados. And that just goes to show that even when the odds are stacked against you, if you have that team spirit and strategic play, you can really make a difference.
Yeah, and that early success, it really highlights the depth of talent on the Ugandan team. They weren't just relying on one or two star players. Everyone stepped up and contributed to those wins. Now, there was a particularly exciting match in round 10 against Nigeria, and Nigeria is one of the strongest teams on the continent.
Oh, yeah. This one was a nail-biter.
Yeah.
Nigeria brought their A-game. They even had a young prodigy with them, candidate master or CM Quickpen, Deborah Ibimobo Air. And she actually outmaneuvered FM Insubuga Haruna. And for our listeners, CM, that title indicates a player on the path to becoming an FM. So a rising star.
Yeah, that's exactly what Quickpen is. Beating an established FM at such a young age, that's incredible talent. And even though Uganda lost that particular board, they really fought back hard. On boards 2 and 3, and they secured a draw against Nigeria, which must have been a huge morale boost.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. To hold their own against a chess powerhouse like Nigeria, especially after that rough start, is really saying something about their resilience and their skill. But of course, there were some tough losses along the way, too. Teams like Singapore, Honduras, and Pakistan proved to be very formidable opponents.
That loss against Honduras was a bit unexpected. It's a reminder that upsets can happen in any tournament. Sometimes a lower-ranked team can just have a phenomenal day. Or a higher-ranked team might underestimate their opponent, and that's part of what makes the Chess Olympiad so exciting.
Yeah, it's true. Each match is a battle of wits, and anything can happen.
Yeah.
So with all those ups and downs, the open team ended up finishing 131st out of 188 countries. And considering they started 2 rounds behind, that's not bad at all.
Not bad at all. To put that in perspective, that puts them in the top 70% of the teams globally.
Man.
And that's a very respectable result considering everything they went through. It speaks to their ability to adapt, to overcome adversity, and to perform under pressure.
Okay, so let's zoom in on some of these individual performances now. FM Kuma Patrick had an outstanding run. He scored 6 out of 8, only losing 1 game. And to clarify, each win earns a point for the team. So a score of 6 out of 8 means he was instrumental in securing those early wins, especially with team members arriving late.
Yeah, he was a rock for the team for sure, providing that stability and consistency. His performance really speaks to his deep understanding of strategy and his ability to capitalize on his opponent's mistakes. Another standout was Nolo Waswa Mark. He scored 3.5 out of 5, again with only 1 loss, and this was his first Olympiad, which is really impressive.
Yeah, like stepping onto the biggest stage for the first time and just crushing it. What impressed you about his playing style?
Well, from what I gathered from the game reports, he seems to favor a very positional style. He's patient, he builds his attacks slowly, and he's very careful not to overextend his pieces. He's like a master chess architect, carefully building up his position until his opponent has nowhere to go.
So a strategic mastermind. So different from Kawuma's style. Now, FMN Subuga Haruna, he finished 4 out of 8, but had a few more losses. It sounds like he might have a more, let's say, adventurous style.
Definitely. Nisubuga is known for his aggressive play. He's always looking for attacking chances, pushing the tempo, often sacrificing pieces to gain an advantage. It's a risky strategy, but when it works, it's really spectacular.
So he's like the daredevil of the team, always going for that big play. And even though it doesn't always pay off, it's exciting to watch. Now, sadly, IM Dr. Sigwani Arthur and CM Ajisa Emmanuel struggled a bit more, and that's likely because they arrived late.
Yeah, and their struggles highlight how important it is to acclimatize to the environment and overcome that jet lag, especially in a mentally demanding tournament like the Olympiad. It's a reminder that even the most talented players can be affected by external factors.
Okay, so now let's talk about the women's team. Uganda had a pretty remarkable run. What stood out to you about them?
Honestly, their energy was just infectious. They were led by woman candidate master, or WCM Ampere Shakira, and the team had this great mix of experience and youthful ambition. Alongside WCM Ampere was woman FIDE master Amoko Ivy Claire, WCM Sana Amprakash Kayar, and rising stars Kawuma Patricia and Takali Millie.
Yeah, I love that we're talking about WCM and WFM titles now. These are equivalent to the CM and FM titles, but specifically for women. And that's awesome because it provides more opportunities for recognition and competition.
Exactly. And the Ugandan women's team didn't waste any time making their mark. Starting in round 3, they just crushed Cameroon with a dominant 4-0 victory.
It's like they bottled up all that frustration from those missed rounds and unleashed it on the board. And they kept that momentum going. They secured wins against Lebanon and Ireland. Talk about a winning streak. I'm guessing it couldn't last forever, though, right?
Right. Every team faces setbacks. In round 6, they had a close loss to Bosnia and Herzegovina, and then a tougher 4-0 defeat against Egypt in round 7. But even in those losses, there were valuable lessons to be learned.
Yeah, they weren't just there to participate. They were analyzing their opponents, adapting their strategies, and constantly trying to improve. That's the mark of true competitors. And they proved that by bouncing back with a hard-fought draw against Hong Kong, China, followed by a victory over Morocco.
Yeah, and those wins weren't just team victories. They were marked by incredible individual achievements. 3 of the players actually earned new titles during the Olympiad. WCM Sana Amprakash Kayar earned her WFM title, and Kawuma Patricia and Takali Millie both earned their WCM titles. I mean, imagine the thrill of achieving that on such a huge stage.
Seriously, it's the stuff that dreams are made of. Not only are they representing their country, but they're exceeding their personal goals and making history.
Yeah, absolutely. It shows the immense potential within Ugandan chess, and it sends this powerful message to aspiring players back home. These titles, they're not just about bragging rights. They open doors to more opportunities, higher-level tournaments, and greater recognition.
Yeah, it's like leveling up in real life. It creates this ripple effect of inspiration. Okay, so before we get to the final results for the women's team, there's this one amazing little anecdote from the tournament I have to share. It really captures the spirit of the Olympiad.
I do love a good behind-the-scenes moment. What is it?
So a picture surfaced online of Takali Millie chatting with none other than Grandmaster Fabiano Caruana, who's one of the top players in the world. It created quite a buzz online with people joking that maybe Caruana's planning a trip to Uganda after their encounter.
That's fantastic. It's a reminder that beyond all the competition, the Olympiad is also about building connections, sharing the love of the game, and fostering that sense of community among players from all over the world.
Exactly. Okay, back to those results. The Ugandan women's team finished 86th out of 169 countries. Not too shabby, especially after having to forfeit those first 2 rounds.
It's a remarkable achievement. To place in the top 50% after starting with that disadvantage really demonstrates their talent, their tenacity, and their strategic skill. Uganda should be incredibly proud.
They definitely earned those bragging rights. And when you look at the individual performances, it's even more impressive. WCM Sana Amprakash Kayar had a stellar run. She scored 6.5 out of 9 and only lost 2 games the entire tournament.
That's amazing. That level of consistency at such a high-stakes event suggests a combination of strong opening preparation, tactical awareness, and the mental stamina to stay focused throughout these long games.
Yeah, and let's not forget Takali Millie. She scored 5 out of 7, only losing 2 games as well. Clearly earning that new WCM title gave her a confidence boost. But, it wasn't all smooth sailing for the Ugandan teams. I mean, remember, they faced significant financial challenges just to get to Budapest.
This is where their story gets even more inspiring. The Uganda Chess Federation had to overcome so many financial hurdles. It impacted their travel, their preparation. They even had to make a last-minute appeal to the government for a private jet, just to make sure that they could participate.
I can't imagine that stress and uncertainty. It's a testament to their dedication that they even made it to the Olympiad, let alone performed as well as they did.
It really is. It shows that their passion for chess goes beyond the board. They were willing to fight for their chance to compete, and that determination shines through.
And speaking of support, there's a heartwarming moment in the article that I think deserves recognition. IA Robert Katende received a donation of DGT equipment on behalf of the Uganda Chess Federation. And for those who don't know, DGT boards are electronic chess boards used for broadcasting and analyzing games at a high level.
Yeah, that donation, while it might seem small, it's really symbolic of the growing recognition and support for Ugandan chess. These DGT boards allow players to analyze their games in detail, identify areas for improvement, and study the games of top players.
Yeah, it's a really valuable tool for any chess player, especially those who are aspiring to reach the highest levels. It's a sign that people are taking notice of Uganda's potential, and they want to be part of their success.
Yeah, and that's what makes the story so compelling. It's not just about the wins and losses, it's about the human spirit, the pursuit of excellence, and the unwavering belief in one's potential. The Uganda Chess Federation, players, the coaches, they all came together to overcome these incredible challenges and make their mark on the world stage.
And their performance at the Olympiad has really put Ugandan chess on the map. And I have a feeling this is just the beginning.
I completely agree. They've shown the world that with talent and dedication and a little bit of resilience, anything is possible. But this is just part one of our deep dive. There's still so much more to unpack.
So stay tuned, because in part two, we'll be diving deeper into those individual performances, we'll be analyzing some of the key matches, and we'll be exploring the strategic brilliance that fueled Uganda's success at the 2024 Chess Olympiad. Welcome back to our deep dive into Uganda's performance at the 2024 Chess Olympiad. We've set the stage, talked about the team's overall performance, and now I kind of want to get into some of those individual performances that really stood out. Where better to start than with FN Kawuma Patrick's incredible run in the open section? 6 out of 8 wins, only 1 loss. That's got to be some kind of record for a Ugandan player at the Olympiad, right?
It's definitely exceptional. To maintain that level of consistency over 8 rounds, especially with all the disruptions at the beginning, really shows his mental toughness and his strategic depth.
Yeah, like he just thrived under pressure. What impressed you about his game specifically?
Well, one thing that I noticed when I was looking at the match reports was his ability to kind of control the pace of the game. You know, he wasn't afraid to patiently maneuver his pieces into good positions, and then wait for the right time to strike. In his game against IM Daniel Cottery of South Africa, for example, he slowly built up pressure on the queen side, and that forced Cottery into making all these defensive moves, which ultimately weakened his king's position.
So it's like he's setting a trap, luring his opponent into this false sense of security before delivering the final blow. I love that. Okay, so now Nyola Waswa-Mark, another standout performer, 3.5 points out of 5 in his very first Olympiad. It's one thing to play well, but to do it on a stage that big for the first time, that's really saying something. Did you get a sense of his playing style from the reports?
Yeah, Nyola's style is pretty different from Kawuma's. He's much more of a positional player. His game against FM Valerialis of Latvia was a good example of this. He really meticulously built up a strong pawn structure in the center and gradually restricted Atlas's pieces and created weaknesses in his position. It was a slow, grinding victory, but super impressive.
So he's like the boa constrictor of chess, slowly squeezing the life out of his opponent. It's really interesting to think about the contrast between these two players. You have Kawuma, this tactical wizard, always going for the attack, and then Nyola, the positional mastermind, patiently building his advantage. It seems like Uganda had a good blend of styles on their open team.
Yeah, definitely. Having that diversity of styles can be really beneficial in a team event like this. You know, you have players who can adapt their approach based on who they're playing against. It makes the team as a whole much harder to prepare for.
For sure.
And of course, we can't forget about FM Nsubuga Haruna. His 4 out of 8, while respectable, was marked by both these brilliant victories and then also some unfortunate losses.
Yeah, his games definitely seem to be the most eventful, let's say. He was either winning in this spectacular fashion or getting caught in these daring attacks.
Yeah, exactly. His game against GM Eric Braun of Germany was a perfect example. Haruna sacrificed a knight early on to open up lines for his bishops and his queen, and then he launched this devastating attack on Braun's king. and forced him to resign after just 25 moves.
25 moves. Wow, that's lightning fast at this level. It must have been an incredible game to watch.
Yeah.
But I guess that high-risk, high-reward style also explains those losses too, huh?
Exactly. Sacrificing pieces can lead to these brilliant wins, but it also leaves you vulnerable if the attack doesn't work out. Like in his game against Rauf Mammadov of Azerbaijan, Haruna sacrificed a pawn for what looked like a really promising attack, but Mammadov defended really well and ended up winning.
Right, it's a reminder that chess is all about calculated risks. Sometimes those bold moves pay off, and sometimes they backfire. Okay, let's shift our focus to the women's section now, where we saw some equally remarkable individual achievements. WFM Sana Omprakash Kayar scoring 6.5 out of 9 and earning her WFM title. What a performance. When you think about her style, do any specific games come to mind?
Well, Sana's games were all about this incredible tactical awareness. She had a real knack for spotting these subtle combinations and traps, and she could often turn what seemed like quiet positions into these attacking opportunities. Her game against Wim Sarasadat Kadamalshari of Iran was a perfect example.
Go tell me more.
So in this really complex middle game, Sana sacrificed a rook to expose the Iranian player's king. And Kadamalshari, she thought she had escaped the worst of the attack, but she missed a really subtle defensive move. And then Sana just unleashed this series of forcing moves that led to this beautiful checkmate. It was a really stunning display of her tactical vision.
So she's like a chess ninja lurking in the shadows, and then bam. Okay, what about Takali Millie, who also earned her WCM title during the Olympiad? 5 out of 7 wins. What stood out about her games?
Takali's games were full of energy and fighting spirit. She really seemed to favor these sharp open positions where she could use her tactical skills. Her game against WCM Julia Antelak of Poland was a good example. It was this wild tactical battle, and Takali just navigated it so well, this series of complex exchanges, and she ended up outmaneuvering Antelak for the win.
Sounds like she thrives in chaos, finding those winning combinations amidst all the complexity. And what about the other members of the team, Kawuma Patricia and WCM Ampere Shakira? They may not have earned titles this time, but their contributions can't be overlooked.
Absolutely not. Kawuma Patricia scored 4 out of 8. And she showed a really solid understanding of positional play and defensive technique. Her ability to hold her own against higher-rated opponents was super important in getting those valuable draws for the team. And WCM Ampere Shakira, despite facing some really tough competition, she played with so much determination and spirit. Her score of 3.5 out of 8 doesn't reflect how much she contributed to the team's success.
I think it's so important to remember that the Olympiad is a team event, and every player's contribution, whether it's a win, a draw, or even a tough loss, it all adds up to the team's overall score and morale. It's about supporting each other, learning from each other, and pushing each other to be better.
Yeah, and that team spirit really shone through in Uganda's performance. They faced so many obstacles, both logistical and financial, but they never gave up. They played with so much passion and determination and this genuine love of the game.
Their story is truly inspiring. But their journey at the Olympiad is really just one chapter in the larger story of Ugandan chess. What does the future hold for them and for chess in Uganda?
That's a great question, and that's what we'll be exploring in our final segment. We'll be discussing the legacy of their performance, the potential for even more success, and what steps need to be taken to support the next generation of Ugandan chess stars.
Welcome back to our final part of this deep dive into Uganda at the 2024 Chess Olympiad. So we've analyzed their journey, we've seen those individual wins and losses, and I think now it's time to look ahead. What does this experience mean for the future of chess in Uganda?
You know, I think this Olympiad really feels like a turning point for them. It's not just about the results. It's about what it says to the world. You know, Uganda's a serious player on the world chess stage now. The question is, how do they keep that going?
Right, it's one thing to have that moment, but how do you turn that into lasting change? What needs to happen to make sure this isn't just, a one-time thing? But the start of something much bigger.
Yeah, well, I think investment is key. We talked about those financial struggles that the Uganda Chess Federation faced. Imagine what they could do with consistent funding for training, coaching development, access to those resources like those DGT boards.
Yeah, it's like giving those talented athletes the best equipment. You can't expect them to compete at the highest level without that support. But beyond the money, what else needs to happen?
I think they need a strategic vision.
Yeah.
The Uganda Chess Federation needs a real roadmap, a clear plan to develop that talent from the ground up all the way to the elite level. So things like talent identification programs, structured coaching pathways, and just more opportunities to play competitively.
So it's not just about throwing money at the problem. It's about being strategic and creating a system where young players can reach their full potential.
Exactly. And it's about creating a culture around chess that really values that strategic thinking, problem solving, fostering that intellectual curiosity. That can be done through school programs, community initiatives, media coverage that showcases the excitement of chess.
Yeah, making chess cool again. Showing kids that it's not just, a game for nerds, but something that's challenging and rewarding and can help you in all aspects of life.
For sure. And let's not forget mentorship, connecting those young Ugandan players with experienced chess masters, even grandmasters from other countries. Could be so valuable for them to have that guidance.
It's like having a coach for your mind,
You're
right?
right.
Someone to help you unlock your potential. Okay, so we can't talk about all this without mentioning the big dream. Uganda producing their first grandmaster.
Yeah, it's ambitious, but I don't think it's impossible. I mean, we've seen that raw talent, the passion, the dedication. It's about making sure they have the right environment to help that talent grow.
So if we were to lay out that roadmap to grandmaster, what would it look like?
Well, first, you have to identify those players with exceptional potential and then create these personalized training plans. Give them access to top-level coaches' training camps and let them compete against the best in the world. It's a big commitment from both the players and the federation.
Yeah, creating that system of excellence where the best are really nurtured and supported. But
Yeah.
it's not just about technical skills, right? There's that whole mental game in chess, too.
Oh, absolutely. To be a grandmaster, you need more than just talent. You need that mental toughness, resilience, the ability to perform under pressure. That's where things like sports psychology, mindfulness training, and mentorship from experienced players become so important.
Yeah, training the mind as well as the body, giving them the tools to deal with setbacks, to stay focused. Okay, so beyond that individual goal of grandmaster, what about the bigger picture for Ugandan chess?
Well, I think the goal should be to really establish themselves as a force internationally, consistently participating in those top-level tournaments, hosting major events like the African Championships.
Yeah, building that chess legacy, that tradition of excellence, that inspires the next generation. Who knows, maybe one day we'll be talking about Uganda winning the whole Olympiad.
That would be amazing. But even beyond those titles and trophies, it's about the impact chess has on people and communities. Developing those critical thinking skills, problem solving, a love for learning.
Using chess as a force for good, empowering people.
Exactly. What Uganda did at the 2024 Chess Olympiad really showed the world what you can do with talent and dedication and a little bit of belief. And now it's up to the Uganda Chess Federation, the players, everyone who supports them, to keep building on that and create a lasting legacy for Ugandan chess.
Well, this has been an incredible story to dive into, and I hope our listeners are feeling inspired, maybe even a little bit motivated to dust off those chessboards. If you want to learn more, we encourage you to seek out more information about Ugandan chess and support their journey.
And remember, the real beauty of chess isn't just about winning. It's about the journey, the challenges, the triumphs, and what you learn along the way. So whether you're a grandmaster or just starting out, embrace the game, challenge yourself, and never stop learning.
Perfectly said, and that brings us to the end of our deep dive into Uganda's incredible performance at the 2024 Chess Olympiad. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, keep exploring, keep playing, and keep those minds sharp.